I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to write something like this. Honestly, I always rolled my eyes when I saw long, messy love confessions online. But after everything that happened to me, after everything I went through leading up to my wedding, I feel like I need to get this out. Maybe for closure. Maybe because I still don't fully believe it happened to me. Or maybe, just maybe, because sharing it will help me finally let it go. So here's my story. When I first met Daniel, I wasn't even looking for love. I was 26, working long hours at a marketing firm, fresh out of a breakup that had left me a little jaded. He was 29, funny in that quiet, sarcastic way, with this easy smile that could melt your guard down before you even realized it. We met through mutual friends at a trivia night, and I swear, the second he answered some obscure 90s movie question without hesitation, I felt something spark. Our relationship wasn't perfect, whose is? But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had found someone steady. He showed up when he said he would. He texted back. He listened. He made me laugh. That sounds like the bare minimum, but if you've dated in your 20s, you know how rare that actually is. When he proposed to me 2 years later, under a string of fairy lights in his parents' backyard, I cried so hard I couldn't even say yes right away. Everyone clapped. My mom hugged him like he was already her son. It was the happiest moment of my life. At least that's what I thought. Anyone who's ever planned a wedding knows it's basically a second full-time job. I tried to keep my head above water, balancing work deadlines with vendor calls, dress fittings, and endless Pinterest boards. Daniel was supportive, but if I'm being honest, most of the heavy lifting fell on me. He'd show up when I asked him to, but he wasn't the kind of guy who cared about flower arrangements or cake flavors. Still, I didn't mind. Because in my head, all that mattered was that at the end of the day, I'd be walking down the aisle toward the man I loved. But little cracks started showing. Like how Daniel seemed more distracted lately. He worked in IT, and sometimes his late nights at the office felt a little too frequent. He brushed it off, and I tried not to push. Stress, I told myself. Everyone's stressed. One Friday night, about 3 months before the wedding, I was home alone folding laundry. Daniel had told me he'd be out with coworkers for happy hour. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, and normally I wouldn't snoop. I wanted to be the kind of fiancé who trusted, but the preview on the screen caught my eye. It was a message from a woman named Claire. Wish you were here instead. Miss you. My stomach dropped so fast, I swear I felt dizzy. I shouldn't have, but I unlocked his phone. The thread was full of flirty texts, some harmless, some not so harmless. She called him babe. He told her she looked amazing in that dress last time. I sat there frozen, my hands shaking, staring at the screen like it was written in another language. My fiancé, the man I was about to marry, What was this? When I confronted him later that night, he looked guilty, but not shocked. He swore it was nothing serious, that she was just a coworker who had gotten too close, that it was stupid texting, and that he'd end it immediately. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. The deposits were already paid, invitations already sent, our parents already so excited. And despite the sick feeling in my gut, I still loved him. So I forgave him. At least I tried to. Fast forward to the wedding day itself. My dress fit like a dream. My bridesmaids looked beautiful. The venue sparkled with string lights and fresh flowers. It should have been everything I ever wanted, except for one thing. Claire showed up. Yes, she showed up to my wedding. I didn't even notice at first. I was too caught up in photos and hugs and my nerves jangling like live wires under my skin. But halfway through the cocktail hour, one of my bridesmaids grabbed my arm and whispered, "Don't freak out, but she's here." I turned, and there she was, standing near the bar in a tight red dress, holding a champagne flute like she belonged there. My blood went cold. Guests milled around, oblivious. My mom was chatting with relatives, the photographer snapping away, Daniel talking with his groomsmen. And there, like some twisted movie plot, stood the woman who had been texting my fiancé 3 months earlier. I don't remember walking over to her, but suddenly I was standing in front of her. My voice shook when I asked, "Why are you here?" Claire's words hung in the air like smoke I couldn't breathe through. "Because you deserve to know the truth." I felt the room spin. I wanted to scream, to grab her and drag her out, but my body froze. Somewhere in the distance I heard laughter, music, glasses clinking. My wedding day still unfolding like a dream for everyone else, while for me it was morphing into a nightmare. I forced my voice steady. "What truth? What are you even doing here?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice so no one else could hear. "Daniel never stopped seeing me, even after you found those texts. He told you he ended it, right? He didn't." My chest tightened. "No, you're lying. He swore." She cut me off with a sharp laugh. "Oh, he swore all right. Swore to me that you were just convenient. That he couldn't call off the wedding because of the money, the families, the pressure. But with me, he was real. He loved me." Her words were daggers, and every one of them pierced deeper than the last. I don't know what possessed me, but I grabbed Daniel's arm across the room. My voice cracked when I said, "We need to talk. Now." He looked confused at first, then pale when he saw Claire standing behind me. The three of us ended up in a side hallway of the venue, away from the noise. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought I'd collapse. "Tell me she's lying," I whispered, staring at him, begging for the man I thought I knew. Daniel's eyes darted between me and Claire, sweat breaking across his forehead. "Babe, listen. It's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I snapped. My voice echoed down the hallway. "She says you've been seeing her this whole time. After you promised me it was over." Claire folded her arms smugly. "Go ahead, Daniel. Tell her the truth for once." He rubbed his face, shaking his head like a trapped animal. "It was a mistake, okay? I tried to stop. I thought I could handle both, but—" Both. That one word shattered me, like glass cracking clean through. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. My bridesmaids pulling me away while guests pretended not to stare. My mom's horrified face when she realized what was happening. The wedding planner frantically trying to keep the schedule on track while my world crumbled around me. I remember sitting in the bridal suite, makeup smeared, staring at my dress like it was a costume from someone else's life. And for the first time, I allowed The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the humiliation of my wedding imploding in front of everyone I knew. The hardest part was letting go of the future I had built in my head. The house we would buy, the kids we would have, the holidays we'd spend together. But deep down I knew if I said I do that day, I'd be shackling myself to a man who didn't truly love me, who had already proven he'd choose someone else, even when he had me. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I walked back out to the reception hall, my voice shaking as I took the microphone from the DJ. Guests went silent. Daniel's face was pale as a ghost. Claire had vanished. I took a deep breath. There's not going to be a wedding tonight. I just found out my fiancé hasn't been honest with me, and I won't start a marriage built on lies. Gasps, murmurs, my mother crying softly in the front row. I put the mic down and walked out. 5. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, returned gifts, sympathetic messages, and awkward explanations. Daniel tried reaching out at first, begging me to reconsider, swearing he'd fix it, but I blocked him on everything. Claire sent me one smug text. "Guess I win." I didn't even respond, because deep down I knew she hadn't won anything. I had. I had won my freedom. Months later. It's been 8 months since that day. The pain isn't gone completely, but it's lighter now, like a scar instead of an open wound. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinners, laughter, the tentative reminder that love doesn't have to mean betrayal. And I've learned something important. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Spring arrived quietly, almost without me noticing. For months after the wedding that wasn't, the world had felt gray and muffled, like I was watching life through a fogged window. But then, one morning I stepped outside, and the air smelled like rain and blooming lilacs, and for the first time I realized I hadn't thought about Daniel in days. It startled me, that sudden lightness. Healing never happens all at once. It sneaks in, piece by piece, until one day you realize the wound isn't bleeding anymore. I had thrown myself into work, into dinners with friends, into long walks with my dog just to keep moving forward. Yet loneliness lingered, stubborn as a shadow. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, if I'd ever look at someone without hearing the echo of betrayal. Spring arrived quietly, almost without me noticing. For months after the wedding that wasn't, the world had felt gray and muffled, like I was watching life through a fogged window. But then, one morning I stepped outside and the air smelled like rain and blooming lilacs. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't thought about Daniel in days. It startled me, that sudden lightness. Healing never happens all at once. It sneaks in, piece by piece, until one day you realize the wound isn't bleeding anymore. I had thrown myself into work, into dinners with friends, into long walks with my dog just to keep moving forward. Yet loneliness lingered, stubborn as a shadow. I wondered if I'd ever trust again, if I'd ever look at someone without hearing the echo of betrayal. The coffee shop encounter. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I ducked into a small coffee shop near my office, hair still damp from the rain, laptop under my arm. The line was long, and I almost left, but something made me stay. That's when I noticed him. He stood a few places ahead of me, tall, with messy dark hair and glasses slipping down his nose. He had this absent-minded charm, fumbling with his wallet, apologizing to the barista when he dropped a handful of change. He laughed at himself, and it wasn't forced, just easy and genuine. When he turned, our eyes met for a fraction of a second, just enough to make my stomach flip in that annoying, dangerous way I hadn't felt since before Daniel. A chance conversation. Fate, or maybe just bad timing, made the credit card machine stall when it was my turn to order. I stood there awkwardly, the barista tapping buttons when the stranger from earlier stepped back up. "Looks like it hates mornings as much as I do," he said with a grin. I laughed, a real laugh, not the polite kind I'd perfected over the past year. Story of my life. That tiny exchange turned into a conversation while we waited. His name was Ethan. He was a freelance photographer, recently moved back to the city after years abroad. He loved hiking, old movies, and apparently had a talent for burning pancakes. By the time my latte was ready, I realized we'd been talking for nearly 20 minutes. He handed me a napkin with his... Ethan and I started small. Coffee again, then a walk through the park, a trip to an art exhibit where he explained photography like it was magic and made me see light in a way I never had before. I told him about my failed wedding, eventually, bracing for pity or judgment, but he just nodded, thoughtful, and said softly, "Sometimes the universe has to break you out of the wrong story so you can find the right one." Those words stuck with me. Months passed, and what grew between us wasn't fireworks or chaos. It was steady, gentle, the kind of love that felt like exhaling after holding your breath too long. It never made me doubt. He texted when he said he would. He showed up 5 minutes early. He noticed when I was quiet and gave me space, but also brought me my favorite tea without asking. One night, sitting under the stars on a camping trip, he took my hand and said, "I don't care what your past looks like. I just want to be part of your future." And for the first time, I believed someone. It's been over 2 years since that disastrous almost wedding. Looking back, I don't regret walking away. It hurt like hell. It nearly broke me. But it also cleared the path for something better. Daniel and Claire? Last I heard, they didn't even last 6 months. Maybe that was karma. Maybe it was inevitable. As for me, I didn't just find love again. I found myself again. Stronger, wiser, softer in the right ways. And if you had told the broken woman in the bridal suite that night that she'd one day smile at the memory, she would have laughed in your face. But she'd be wrong, because I smile now. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I survived it. And because sometimes the story you think is ending is only the beginning.